What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Flying solo for the time being. I'm sure Tim will be joining us here in a second as he gets settled in. But here to talk a little Packers-Bears as we're one day closer to the division rivalry down in Chicago. Should be a fun game to watch. All right, I think we got Tim joining us in here now. What up, Tim? How you doing this morning, big dog?
I definitely did not just wake up 4 minutes ago. I promise.
There you go. We love the honesty, Tim. Love the transparency there, man. So.
You guys know I'm such a morning person, right?
Good morning.
Tim just rolled out of bed, and I'm on my third stogie. You know what I'm saying? We're out here getting this thing cranked up. But no, it's I'll tell you, man, we woke up, it was about 40, I think it was 48 degrees, something like that. Just absolutely perfect, man. So
you love it. You love the cool weather.
I'm telling you, getting a break from the heat. It's been a very warm fall too, so it's nice just to, like I said, get a little break from it. But let's go to the chat. I know we got several people filing in. Good to see everybody in here. That's right. Daryl says, "Good morning, Clayton. Coffee time." Yes, sir. I'm on my second cup. Mandy's got the Christmas mugs broke out. Tim, y'all broke those out yet, man?
No, not yet. Not yet. We're still going through decorations.
Definitely. Nick McSwain in the chat said, "Good morning, PTA. Really wanted to see Mike Tyson knock out Jake Paul." Let me get this fixed here. Knock out Jake Paul. LOL. Hopefully I can move around like that when I'm 60, though. Yeah, Nick, I think 90% of the country was wanting to see Tyson just come out and lay him out. I was at the barbershop yesterday, Tim, and was chatting with a guy that was cutting my hair, and he's like, "You going to watch a fight?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I'm going to watch a fight, man." I'm, grew up watching Tyson just dominate people. And he said, "How you think it's going to go?" And I said, "I think it's I don't want to say it's a fake fight, but I think it's designed to go the distance. So both fighters maintain a little bit of respect, make it look as competitive as you can." I said, "But honestly, I think Jake Paul could probably take Tyson right now." Tyson is so old, man, and you've seen it. I mean,
you saw Jake Paul. I mean, first of all, I'm not a huge Jake Paul fan at all.
Me neither. Yeah.
Right? But yeah. I am a fan of the respect that he showed to Mike Tyson in the ring.
Bingo.
Yeah. And honestly, he probably could have knocked him out, and he didn't. So, I don't know. I know they did it to try and help the sport of boxing, but I don't know how much it helped. It's kind of tough to watch, but a lot of respect for Tyson for hanging in there and going the distance. If it was 3-minute rounds, it might have been a different story. But
exactly, yeah.
Hey, it was cool to see. You don't see that every day. 58-year-old fighting a 27-year-old. So
yeah, and again, I like that Jake Paul showed the respect he did for Tyson at the end. Now, listen, there's some people on the other side that go, when Tyson landed that left hand early, Tyson let off the throttle. It was almost like, okay, if I knock him out right now, I ain't gonna get paid the money that might be behind the scenes here. It kind of felt like it was geared that way.
I'll tell you what. Shout out to the fight of the night.
Taylor
Serrano, and congratulations to Amanda Serrano, who won that fight. I don't care what anybody says.
And shout out to Netflix for having an absolutely garbage product, by the way. It was so bad, Tim. It was so bad. I've got internet service here, and the download and upload speed that could feel a rocket ship. And we were spinning there telling me on my screen it's my internet connection. I'm going, you guys lost your mind.
They kept making mine do a speed test, and it kept showing like fast speed. It's like, yeah, keep telling me it's not my internet. Netflix.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
It was hilarious too that many people screen froze right when it showed Mike Tyson's ass pre-fight. Boy, let me tell you, that was hilarious. But anyway, you can tell the people who've never been in a locker room too playing sports. They were like, "Oh, how despicable!" My boys, y'all have no idea.
Yeah, you wouldn't last 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's talk Packers. That's what everybody came for. I apologize, but it was a huge event. It was in Jerry World. Jerry got paid a pretty good chunk. To the best of my knowledge, if I understood correctly, Jake Paul got paid $40 million for winning, and Tyson got $20 million. So it's good to see Mike make a little bit more money there on the backside of the career. But yeah, he's again, it is what it is. But let's move on.
Hopefully that was the last fight. I'm a Tyson fan. I'd rather him not step into the ring again.
I completely agree, man. All right, so we got a little bit of bad news here yesterday. Obviously, And I seen the tweets, and we're going to try to keep it as positive as we can. But Matt Schneidman tweeted out, Marshawn Lloyd has appendicitis, and that's why he missed practice today. LaFleur was quoted as saying, you can't make this stuff up. And then Matt Schneidman quote tweeted his own tweet and said, Packers opened Lloyd's 21-day window to return from IR because of an ankle injury on Wednesday. Now he has appendicitis. LaFleur said Packers are talking to the league. Normal rules say the Packers have 21 days to either activate Lloyd or end his season. New injury throws a wrinkle. So the league may be a little bit, a little bit forgiving there. They may say, you know what, it's a new injury. And when I say injury, I mean appendicitis. I've seen people on Twitter, this guy's going to be a bum. He's he's always going to be hurt, this and that. Guys, you can't do anything about appendicitis.
Nobody has control over appendicitis.
What are we talking about here?
That's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Matt Schneidman, there was the one. So that was the other tweet that I was just wanted to highlight, was just them talking about they are talking to the NFL to see if they can maybe extend that window. Now, listen, appendicitis usually don't set you back too far, right? Wasn't it Joe Burrow that just missed like 1 week or something, Tim?
Something like that. Yeah. And my question is, it's not technically an injury, right? That would be like illness. Would that go into the illness category, I wonder?
Yeah, it kind of feels like it would, right? I mean,
I would think so. It's definitely an NFI if they're going to call it an injury. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. Again, he's not playing this week. I'm pretty sure he was already ruled out. We'll get to the Packers injury report here in a second. Another one that came up, Matt Schneidman, same shoulder that Jordan Morgan has injured a couple times already this season, is the one he aggravated yesterday. Quote, we're kind of going through that process of what's next, LaFleur says. So, this is a situation where it feels like with Jordan Morgan, I don't want to say they keep rushing him back, but rather than letting it completely heal, it's just kind of been nagging him all year long. The good thing is you get Josh Myers back, it sounds like. So with Josh Myers returning, you'll have Sean Ryan at right guard, with Jordan Morgan probably missing. Again, we'll hit the injury report in a second. And then obviously Elton Jenkins will be playing left guard. This isn't like catastrophic or anything, but it is a little frustrating because, look, I've seen the tweets, people talking about, players like Cooper DeJean that are having a great year. And here we took Jordan Morgan in the first round, and instead we really need an offensive lineman. I can understand the argument on both sides, but hindsight's 2020, gang. Like, you can't, it's very well could have been Cooper DeJean battling an injury and struggling this year, and Jordan Morgan just being off the charts, right? You see a multitude of that going on across the league. So
I still love the Jordan Morgan pick. I mean, I look at our secondary. Does our secondary need Cooper DeJean right now? I mean, I don't feel like there's massive holes in our secondary. So if there were, I could see the argument. Hey, you took a lineman, you didn't help the secondary at all, but we loaded up in that secondary. So I'm good with the Jordan Morgan pick. I think he's going to turn out to be a hell of a pro.
Yeah. And the other thing with that too, like, you don't know how Cooper DeJean would play in this defense either. Like, exactly. A perfect example is when you look at our defensive front. Many people are like, all of a sudden all of our pass rushers are just bums, right? And I guarantee you, if you took our pass rushers and threw them into another defense where they're just pinning their ears back and going after the quarterback, all four, you probably get much better results, right? So it's hard to kind of cross-examine that and say, okay, here, compared to what the Philadelphia Eagles do with Cooper DeJean and with what our boy Halfley is doing here, in Green Bay, obviously. And really, when you look at the tape, you're looking at a lot of cover three calls, right? A lot of cover three calls. And if quarterbacks aren't going to throw into the teeth of the defense at a cover three call, then that nickel corner, if that's what Cooper DeJean was playing, he wouldn't be getting the opportunities that he's getting with Philly, right? And it all comes down to you take that, different coaches, different schemes, maybe not even just like hugely different schemes, but schemes in which they focus a little bit more on this aspect of stopping the opponent's offense. And then you throw into the fact that, okay, now you're playing this opponent this week. We're going to change our game plan up completely. There's just a lot of ifs and buts there, So now, if you're telling me we could get the same performance that Cooper DeJean is getting in Philly, would you rather have that over Jordan Morgan, who's been banged up? There's no one on the face of the earth that would say no. Like, you obviously, if you could choose a healthy player playing at a high level over a player who's been battling through an injury, you're going to take the healthy player. So I try not to get into those conversations too much because it does turn into that whole hindsight issue. But anyway, again, it's it comes down to too, what if Cooper DeJean ends up being nothing after this year? Are you going to be the one to go back and go, hey man, I was wrong on that. He had one good year, right? So
we know how much people like to admit that they're wrong. So,
tell you, I try. I honestly, Tim, I try to be good about that. I really do, man. Like when I screw stuff up, I want you guys to hear it from me first, because I think other people, they create this facade that you've got to be right all the time. And man, the reality is self-edification is people repellent. When people say, I told you so, they think people love hearing that for some reason. I'm telling you, people cringe when you say it. So I always want to be the person to say, hey, look, I screwed this up and this up. Now, when we do get stuff right, we want to point out here's how we were seeing it at the time, because in the future, maybe it'll go in the same direction. So anyway.
Absolutely. And I think if you're willing to admit when you're wrong, there's nothing wrong with you pointing out when you're right.
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about it. All right. So the simple injury report, Matt Schneidman put out here, Packers final injury report versus the Bears. Out is Jordan Morgan and Marshawn Lloyd. So they are both ruled out. Okay. Doubtful is Colby Wooden. I think we could pretty much say he's not going to play. And then questionable is Jair Alexander and Evan Williams. Josh Myers is good to go. So as far as the offensive line, not overly concerned there. Don't get me wrong. The Bears have a solid defense, but the fact that you're going to march out there, Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, and Zach Tom, I feel just as good about that as if we had Jordan Morgan rotating there at right guard, because I imagine that's how it would go with Josh Myers being healthy now. So as far as Jair Alexander and Evan Williams, I think that history would suggest one of those two are going to play, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're both out, and I wouldn't be surprised if they both play. But basically questionable status means there's a 50% chance of each player playing. With it being the Bears too, Tim, and I'm not saying you're willing to overlook any opponent. Listen, the Bears can beat the Packers. That is a realistic thing. That can happen. I'm not saying that there's no way they can't beat the Packers. But if there was a game on your schedule based off current status of the team and the momentum they may or may not have at the exact second in the season, I'd feel good about sitting both of them personally, because that offense really has struggled in Chicago. How do you see that? Would you rather them? I don't know. I don't want to sway your opinion here, and say rush. But would you rather them play Jair Alexander and Evan Williams a little banged up, or just let them rest up here?
Oh boy, that's a tough one, because the technical side of me wants to err on the side of caution, especially because the point you just made, the Bears are not, they're not lethal on offense lately. Mm-hmm. But man, I'm tired of seeing Ja miss games, man. I want to see Ja back on that field. And Evan Williams, I think, is one of those guys where you're going to have to handcuff him to the radiator if you don't want him to play. So I think they're both going to try and go. But ultimately, it's not up to them either. So I think it's up to the staff and how they want to go about this. We have some depth at corner. We definitely have depth at safety. And I think, our supporting cast can get the job done in Chicago for sure. But me as a fan, I want to see my boy Jair back on the field. And I know everybody wants to see Evan Williams out there. So hopefully, maybe it's going to go down like you said. Maybe one of the two is going to go. Maybe they hold Evan out one more week and Jair hits the field, or vice versa. But I'd like to see at least one of those guys on the field tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's a realistic ask too. I really do. So we'll keep an eye on that as we move forward. Now, as far as the Bears injury report, just a simple version here from Kevin Fishbane, who covers the Bears. Bears injury report: out Tevin Jenkins and Kyron Amagaji. Sorry. Questionable Montez Sweat and Tarvarius Moore. So there's their 50% chancers. And then no injury designations for Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones, and Darrell Taylor. So they'll be back in the lineup. So I'd be real with you, Tim, outside of Montez Sweat here. I'm going, who the hell are these guys? Questionable Montez Sweat is huge. If Montez Sweat doesn't play, he's arguably their best pass rusher from what I understand. We'll look at the PFF preview here shortly when we get into a little later in the show. Tarvarius Moore obviously was a solid player several years ago. I don't know how he's playing right now currently, but Tevin Jenkins and Kyron Amagaji being out, I think that actually might be their starting tackles that missed last week as well. I know Amagaji is a tackle. At least he was coming out in the draft, so we'll touch on that again here. Actually, we could probably hit it right here and see if it shows. Just says offensive line. So, yeah, no way of really knowing. So, we'll look at it on the PFF preview for sure. But what do you think about the Bears here? Again, very similar when you look at our injury report compared to theirs, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I guess it also depends on, like you said, who, as far as these guys is not going to go positionally. Obviously, if the Bears are down some O linemen, the offense is probably going to be even more terrible, which bodes well for us if we're going to have guys missing the game due to missing the game on the defensive side of the ball. So it kind of balances it out. I'm with you. I look at this list, and Montez Sweat is a guy that, if he's out, I'm going to be happy. That's a name. That's a stud on that Bears team. And everyone else, yeah, I'm kind of looking like, who the heck are these guys? But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good when you see an injury report and both teams have issues. Sometimes you'll see these matchups and you got an injury report. There's 8 guys on one, and then there's like 1 on another, and you got a completely healthy team. But bottom line is we do have some guys coming back. We've got some guys that have some setbacks. I think it's going to be a good game, and we'll see. We'll know more tomorrow when we get the the final designations and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys would take a quick second, hit that like button for us, help other Packer fans find this channel, find this content. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us here on this Saturday morning as college game day is already roaring. Watch the intro there. Going to be a really good matchup between Georgia and Tennessee today down here in the SEC. And obviously it's a Packers podcast, but go look at the consensus big board. If you got time today, take a quick glance at the consensus big board, look at some of the positions of need for the Packers and say, all right, what players from these two teams are actually playing today, and do a little scouting, man. That's what I usually do when I'm watching college ball. So makes it a lot more enjoyable in that regard. Moving along here. So this is your week 11 play sheet, as Tim likes to say.
Let's go.
You've got the matchups on the week. You got the standings. Shout out to Nerding on NFL for this awesome graphic we get every single week. Let's go through and just kind of look at some of these games that may or may not have implications on the Packers. Obviously, Washington and Philadelphia already played on Thursday night. Philly won that game. In the 1 o'clock slate on Sunday, I'm going to start saying 1 o'clock because that's my time, guys. Hopefully, you guys know. Obviously, Central, it's going to be noon, so it'll be a little easier for me to keep up with moving forward. So since we're on Eastern Standard Time over here, so Baltimore at Pittsburgh, 1 o'clock. That'll be that's going to be a dandy right there. That's two of the best teams in the league right now. I'm really excited to watch that matchup, or at least catch a couple plays out of it. You got the Colts at the Jets. You got the Raiders at the Dolphins. You got the Jaguars at the Lions when the 1 o'clock window. Obviously, we're going to be watching that one. Listen, I don't think there's much of a chance that Jacksonville beats Detroit, although you guys know any given Sunday anything can happen. We're definitely going to be pulling for the Jaguars in that game. Minnesota at Tennessee. That's going to be another tough one for the Packers' sake. Wanting the Titans to beat the Vikings, probably not going to happen. And then, of course, in the 1 o'clock window, we got our Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. We also got the LA Rams at the Patriots. So you're obviously pulling for the Patriots in that game. And then Cleveland at New Orleans wraps up the 1 o'clock window. And obviously we want the Browns to somehow, some way beat the Saints. And if I remember correctly, the Saints are sitting at 3-7. Yep. They're at 3-7, and Cleveland is currently sitting at 2-7. So we'll just call that one the 1 o'clock window Tulip Bowl there, Tim. But
that's Jake Paul, Mike Tyson all over again.
Exactly right. Exactly. So we got some games, and we're going to get to a playoff simulator here in a second and kind of show you what happens if these teams win these games. But that's your 1 o'clock slate. In the 4 o'clock window and the 4:25 window, you've got the Falcons at the Broncos. Obviously, you want the Broncos to win that game. The Seahawks at the 49ers. That one's a little tricky, but Seattle has dropped now to 4-5. San Francisco sitting at 5-4. So we're definitely pulling for the Seattle Seahawks in that game. Going to be a tough one, though, as San Francisco continues to try to get a little healthier every week. Kansas City at Buffalo is going to be an absolutely awesome game. I'm going to be checking that one out. That's two of the best teams in the AFC as well. You've really got, in my opinion, the top 4 teams in the AFC in two different games this week. And you can catch the 1 o'clock and you can catch the 4 o'clock. That's going to be a dandy, right?
One of those 4 teams is winning the AFC this year for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then Sunday night, the game of the week, you got the Bengals at the Chargers. I think that could be a sneaky good game. The LA Chargers are sitting at 4-5. Let's see. No. They're in the AFC. Hold on just a second. They're sitting at 6-3. So obviously they're currently in the playoffs as the standings sit right now. So you'll have the LA Chargers facing the Cincinnati Bengals, who are currently at 4-6. So what you've got is the Chargers trying to solidify themselves into one of those wild card spots. Going to be really, really tough to chase down Kansas City, who's sitting at 9-0. But you will have, like I said, the Cincinnati Bengals looking to play spoiler, and they're trying to keep their season alive too, as they're sitting at 4-6. So, and then the Monday night game of the week, game of the week. I do that in quotations there, or or air quotes, whatever you want to say. Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys. Man, what a stinker. And what's crazy, Tim, this happens every year. If you had talked about this matchup in week one, you just said, man, that's going to be a hell of a ball game there, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And, I don't know, though. Like we always talk about any given Sunday, or in this case, Monday, Dallas is definitely overdue for a win. I just think the Texans are a good team. They're probably gonna win that game.
I can see that. And then, so as far as the standings, you got. Let's just go across the entire NFL real quick. The AFC East, you got the Bills in first place there at 8-2. Closest team to them is the Dolphins at 3-6. That's just wild to think about. Pittsburgh Steelers in first place in the AFC North at 7-2. The Ravens right behind them at 7-3. And again, they're playing this week, so that's just going to be a knockdown drag out. Houston leading the AFC South at 6-4. Closest team to them are the Colts at 4-6. AFC West, you've got the Kansas City Chiefs at 9-0, and the LA Chargers in second place at 6-3. Don't sleep on the Broncos too, man. They're still in the hunt. They are still in the hunt at 5-5. Obviously to get in the wild card. In the NFC East, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles at 7-2, right ahead of the Washington Commanders at 7-3. Now, keep in mind that game was played after this graphic was created. So what it should look like there is now, I'm pretty sure the Eagles are now 8-2 and the Commanders are 7-4. So that may come into play for the Packers seeding a little later in the year. Detroit Lions 8-1, Minnesota Vikings 7-2, and then the Green Bay Packers sitting at 6-3. So it's looking like there's a good chance that 3 playoff teams will come out of the NFC North. Of course, it's going to get real chippy down the stretch here. NFC South, you've got the Falcons leading the way at 6-4. Closest team to them is the Buccaneers at 4-6. And the NFC West, you have got the Arizona Cardinals at 6-4 and the 49ers breathing down their neck at 5-4. So that's how the standings look as far as the divisional races across the league. Now, as far as statistically speaking, most passing yards in the league, Joe Burrow with 2,672 yards right now. Lamar Jackson right behind him, and then Kirk Cousins third. Most rushing yards, you've got Derrick Henry at 1,120 yards. You've got Saquon Barkley at 991 yards. That was before the game the other night, and Saquon had like over 200 yards of all-purpose yards, I believe, if I've seen that correctly. So he may have really, really closed that gap down on Henry. We'll see it on the new graphic next week. Chuba Hubbard has got 818 yards in third place, and then our very own Josh Jacobs is the fourth leading rusher in the league right now at 762 yards rushing, 4.8 yards per carry currently. Most receiving yards, Jamar Chase in Cincy, Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, Terry McLaurin in Washington. And then when it comes from a team statistic standpoint, most offensive yards per game, you got the Ravens leading the way at 440.2 yards per game. Then the 49ers at 412.4 yards per game. Then in third place is the Green Bay Packers at 390.6 yards per game. Right behind them is the Commanders and then the Falcons. Defensively, total yards allowed per game, the Titans still lead the way at 273.6, which shows you that stat means absolutely nothing. The Eagles in second place, 274.1 yards allowed per game. Then the Texans at 288. Chiefs at 289.9. Spags continuing to have that defense churning out there in Kansas City, and then the Broncos at 295.7 yards per game. So that's kind of your Week 11 preview. Tim, before I take this graphic down, anything else you want to point out there that I may or may not have missed? Anything you want to add at all, man?
I think the thing that's interesting to me is it's all NFC teams on the bye. I don't know if that's how they planned it, but you look at the 4 teams with the bye; they're all NFC teams. I thought that was kind of interesting. Other than that, Derek freaking Henry, 6.1 yards per carry. Guy's an absolute truck. Because continues to amaze me as he continues to get older and doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. Just really fun to watch over there on the other side there in the AFC. But no, looks like a great week for football here. The NFC West is really interesting to me because, I mean, that could be like a 4-way battle for, one of the last spots there. And actually coming down to in these next couple of weeks, that whole division could look different as far as who's in front. It's still kind of anybody's division title up for grabs, really, at this point, depending on how people finish their seasons. And I think they're all decent teams too this year. So keep an eye on that NFC West as we watch the NFC playoff picture start to kind of take shape here.
Yeah, completely agree, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think you make a great point there in the NFC West. Cardinals at 6-4, Niners at 5-4, LA Rams at 4-5, Seattle at 4-5. So there's some good football teams in the West, no doubt. And obviously it's the ups and downs of a season. All right. So as far as the AFC standings, just a quick glimpse there from first to last. We'll just rattle them off real quick. You got the Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, Pittsburgh Steelers, Houston Texans, Baltimore Ravens, LA Chargers there at the top. Then it goes on. Denver Broncos at 5-5. You got the Colts at 4-6. The Bengals at 4-6. Dolphins at 3-6. The Jets, the Patriots, both at 3-7. Then you got the Browns, Titans, Raiders, and Jaguars, all with just 2 wins there. So that's how the AFC stacks up. In the NFC, you've got the Detroit Lions at 8-1. The Philadelphia Eagles now at 9-2. The Atlanta Falcons at 6-4, the Cardinals at 6-4, the Vikings at 7-2. And you notice these are in ranking position because of the divisions, right? So the Vikings are the first wild card team there at 7-2. The Packers are the second wild card team at 6-3, and then you've got the Commanders who are now at 7-4 will fall under that final wild card spot, right? And then you've got the 49ers at 5-4. You've got the Bears, the Seahawks, and the Rams at 4-5. You got the Buccaneers at 4-6. You got the Cowboys, the Saints, and the Panthers, all with 3 wins, and then the Giants with 2 wins. So that's just to kind of keep you guys up to date on what's going on around the standings. Now let's have a little fun here. This is the playoff predictor, if you will, the playoff machine on ESPN.com. Shout out to them, and also shout out to Aaron Rodgers, who we see in the chat in here all the time. Not the Aaron Rodgers, but the Aaron Rodgers, if that makes sense. We appreciate you sending this over, and we'll use it from time to time. So basically the way this works, Tim, you can see at the bottom here. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. So you got the divisions. I know it's a little bit smaller, but we'll keep us up on the screen for obvious reasons. So what you've got here essentially, actually, I might be able to, let me see if I can zoom this in just a touch, make it a little easier on everybody. Give me just 1 second. We'll do this, and then we'll try to pop it in there a little bit closer. I don't know if that. Yeah. The only problem is we definitely want to have those games at the top on the screen. So we'll zoom it in and out if we need to. But so here's what you got, guys. The bottom is your divisions, okay, and then at the top up here are all your matchups. So what we can do is pick a winner for each game, and then it'll completely adjust the playoffs, right? So let's say everything does, like, nothing goes our way for the Packers this week. Let's play kind of worst case scenario, okay? So let's say the Lions beat the Jaguars, okay? Let's say that the Rams beat the Patriots. Let's say the Saints beat the Bengals, and the Vikings beat the Titans. Let's say the Bears somehow, some way beat the Packers, right? And this is worst case scenario, right? Now let's look at the seeding here as far as San Fran and Seattle. When you look at it from that angle, Seattle's worse off than San Fran. So let's say San Fran wins that game, and then let's say that Dallas wins that game, right? So if that were to happen this week, Tim, and listen, that's a lot going wrong for the Packers. That's every single thing going wrong for the Packers. The playoffs would be the number 1 seed, the Detroit Lions, the number 2 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles. The number 3 seed would be the Falcons. The 4th seed would be the Cardinals. The 5th seed would be the Vikings. 6th seed would be the Commanders. And then the 7th seed would be the 49ers. So obviously that knocks the Packers out of the playoffs this week. If every team that we need to win loses, right, and the Packers lose to the Bears. Now let's clear the criteria and let's talk about best case scenario. What could potentially happen this week from a best case scenario standpoint? Let's say the Jaguars beat the Lions. The Patriots beat the Rams. Let's say the Titans somehow beat the Vikings. We beat the Bears. The Broncos beat the Falcons. Seattle beats San Francisco, and then we'll say that the Texans beat the Cowboys. So in that scenario there, the Packers are still the number 6 seed. All right. So it would be Detroit 1, Philly 2, Arizona 3, Atlanta 4, Minnesota 5, Green Bay 6. And then, of course, the Washington Commanders there at the 7 seed. I like this, how you can kind of do this, Tim. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to clear everything off, and I'm going to ask you, who do you think will win these games real quick so we can get a more realistic approach? Because obviously we showed you worst case scenario, best case scenario. Let's start here with the Jaguars and the Lions. Who do you think? Listen, this is how I'm asking you this question, Tim. You got to bet the farm. You got to bet everything you own, bro. Who you
okay.
taking?
So you're going to make the non-sports better sports bet here. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, since I'm thinking with my wallet and not my heart at it on these games, where are we starting here?
Jaguars at the Lions.
Yeah, Detroit. Give me Detroit.
All right, there you go.
I just said that out loud.
Rams at the Patriots.
LA. I'll take the Rams.
Yeah, I would too. All right. The Cleveland Browns at the Saints.
Cleveland.
Oh, I like it. All right. So we got our first benefit there. You got the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Tennessee.
The Vikings.
All right. And then you've got Packers at the Bears. I think I know this one. Let's go ahead.
Just go ahead and click on AG.
All right. Let's see. The Falcons at the Broncos.
Atlanta.
All right. And I would probably lean toward Denver there just because it's at home. And, Sean Payton got that defense playing pretty well. Bo Nix is playing as well as you can ask a rookie quarterback. So I could kind of see, okay, that's one that potentially the Broncos could win, but that's cool. Seattle at San Francisco.
Ooh, Niners.
All right. And then we got the Houston Texans at the Cowboys.
Texans.
All right. So that's a pretty realistic approach. I think everybody would agree in the chat. There wasn't anything there like it was just, off the charts. So from that standpoint, the seeding would be the Detroit Lions in the 1 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2 seed, the Falcons in the 3 seed, Cardinals in the 4, Vikings in the 5, the Green Bay Packers in the 6 seed, and then the Washington Commanders in the 7th seed. So that's how
playoffs. Don't talk about it. Playoffs. You can't.
I'm just trying to hope we win a game, another game. So that's how it sits. If you look at the bottom in bold here, guys, let me see if I can zoom in here a touch and give you guys a little bit better shot of that. That kind of shows you in the bold what teams would be in the playoffs, right? So you would basically have the Buffalo Bills coming out of the East. You'd have 2 teams coming out of the North. It'd be Pittsburgh and Baltimore. The NFC East would be Philadelphia and Washington. In the NFC North, you'd have the 3 teams we talked about, Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay. You'd have Atlanta coming out of the South. You'd have the Arizona Cardinals coming out of the NFC West. And then back to the AFC, you'd have the Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles, and Denver coming out of the AFC West with the Houston Texans coming out of the South. So, again, just wanted to take a few minutes and show you guys that. I thought it was cool. Shout out to Aaron Rodgers for sending that over as an idea. That'd be a good way for us to be a little more interactive as we go in and not necessarily try to predict what's going to happen that week, but just from a realistic standpoint. Hey, Tim, how do you see this? I'll give you guys an idea of how I see it. And it should kind of paint the playoff picture for us as we move forward. So really, really cool stuff there. I think that's an awesome tool, Tim.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm sure we'll be using this more than 1 or 2 more times before the season's over.
No doubt, man.
Shout out to the other California kid, the other Aaron Rodgers. Thank you very much.
Exactly. All right. So we got a Patreon question here real quick before we wrap up hour 1. I want to hit this. He sent it a couple of days ago. Listen, I'm not going to be able to give a whole lot of insight here. I'm going to be 100% transparent with everybody when we are asked these questions. But it was Will_RVA in our Patreon group. If you guys want to join our Patreon group, scan the QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. We got a multitude of chats in there where you can kind of keep up with other listeners, other viewers of the show here. And you can also, we've got a questions for the show section where you can get your questions read over the air. We appreciate y'all supporting everybody. And also, if you're a member of one of those 3 tiers, it gives you access to those chats. It'll also put you in the drawing for the giveaways, just a way for us to give back to those who give to us. So what we're going to be doing this week is giving away another autographed Romeo Doubs card. And as long as you're either a member on YouTube or a member of one of the 3 tiers on Patreon, we'll make sure your name is on the Larry McCarron Pinky Wheel of Fame, and we'll give you give that away to one lucky listener. So anyway, Will RVA, hey Clayton, love the content. Was wondering if at some point you consider going over details on how the center/O-line sets protection pre-snap. Like, what is the center/quarterback looking for, and then communicate to the line to adjust based on that play call and what they're reading from the D pre-snap. So appreciate the question and the idea there, Will. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it today. That would be something really cool to kind of do in the offseason, maybe pick 3 plays and how we can see them changing the protection. But in a nutshell, what you're looking to do is, first things first, you're looking to identify the mic. Okay. Now listen, sometimes the mic, it's not saying he's the mic backer. When you're IDing the mic, you're setting the protection to a center point, what I call the impact point of the pass rush. So you're trying to get the protection perfectly set to center up on what they're bringing. And what that means is, you could be strong right and they're overloaded to the weak side, and you may ID the mic as the defensive tackle in the 3-tech, because you're looking at, okay, and what you're saying there is that's the center point. So now every player on the field has got to quickly compute, okay, are we in a 5-man protection? Are we in the 6-man protection with the leak? Are we in a solid 6? Are we in a 7-man protection? What's the protection? And that's going to determine which guy they're going to block. So if they're showing a will fire where they're bringing, let's say they're showing, they're going to bring 7 off the left side, typically what will happen is you'll ID the mic on someone on that side of the line of scrimmage, and that's telling the offensive line, let's play this. Let's kind of fan this left is what they call that. Okay, so you're going to fan the protection to the left. Now, you can do that and drop 4 guys out on the left side and bring guys on the right, and that's where you get into these situations where the quarterback's got to know that's a free runner. So essentially what happens is, in many offenses, the center will call out the protection, right? And the quarterback will just kind of roll with it. Now, for the more veteran quarterbacks, I'd say a large majority of the league, the quarterback's setting the protection too, right? Now, in some cases, like it was leaked out, I don't want to say leaked out, it was mentioned at a presser earlier this year. If I remember correctly, the way the Packers were doing it was so Jordan didn't have everything on his plate right off the bat. Josh Myers was setting the protection. And then as you got later in the year, what they ended up doing is Jordan was setting the passing protection, and the center Josh Myers was setting the run call, meaning who are we going to block on the run call? Because you got to also take into consideration there's many plays where there's multiple plays called coming out of the huddle. So you got to be prepared for either of those. And it's not like hey, guys, we're going to run this play. Are we ready? Are we ready? It's literally can. We're going. And you got to quickly compute that in your mind, right? So hopefully that somewhat answers your question there, Will. But it's all about what's the defense showing pre-snap, because you don't have the luxury of knowing what the actual call is. You've got to plan for the worst and be prepared, plan for the worst and be prepared in that regard. And then obviously if they drop those guys out and you got enough guys to protect, you want to make sure that you don't have a free runner. Now, if you've got a 5-man protection and they're bringing 6, you set the protection. Typically another layer to the protection is the quarterback knowing who the free runner is. And what that means is you've only got 5 blocking, they're bringing 6. One of those guys is going to be on the quarterback. And that means he knows nobody's blocking that dude. If they blitz like we think they're going to, that's on me to get the ball out on a hot read or make that dude miss, step up in the pocket, slide away from him. And
or motion my running back sidecar for protection or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You'll see that too. They'll come to the line. They'll show an overload. Okay, they come. And you'll just see Jordan, they'll set the protection, and he'll slide the running back over. And it could be a chip and release, right, like a leak, or it can be a solid, just a T-safe play where he's staying in and blocking. When you hear us say T-safe on Chalk Talk, the T is the running back, the tailback, okay? If you hear us say H-safe, that's the H-back, which is typically a tight end in the Packers play call who is in the backfield, right? If you hear us say Y-safe, it means the tight end is actually staying in and blocking. If you hear us say Y-leak or T-leak or H-leak, that means they're chipping and leaking out, and we'll give you the specific play call of the route design in that regard. It's a lot to kind of take in just a question live on the air, but hopefully I answered that enough for you, Will. And maybe we can get us 2 or 3 examples in the off season when we don't have actual football to talk about, we can kind of break it down and go, okay, here's 3 different looks, right? Here's how they set the protection. And when you see a quarterback get blindsided and hit, like It happened with Xavier McKinney on his safety blitz. It happened with Keyshawn Nixon on the strip sack on his nickel blitz. That is a byproduct of they weren't expecting him to blitz, and the quarterback didn't even see him coming. Like he should have known that was my guy there, right? Because the protection was set. And it's easy for me to say sitting here in my comfy office chair, Tim, like, what were they doing? They let that free burner come. There's a lot of stuff going on that football field, man.
Yep. And it's a lot of different moving pieces and a lot of things to diagnose. You know, your quarterback might see something. Is he communicating that to his line? Is there enough time on the play clock? We all know you want to use as much of the play clock as you possibly can to get as much intel pre-snap on that defense. But, you know, we talk about sugar all the time. And that's one of the things I love about Coach Half is he incorporates a lot of sugar into his looks. And it's tough to get a read on our defense all the time because you may see a guy mugging and then you may change your protection to account for that quote unquote free runner. And all of a sudden the guy's running down the field into coverage and kind of screws things up for you. So being unpredictable on defense is huge when these offensive lines are trying to set their protections. So something to be excited about for Packer fans. I think last year before with Joe Barry is we sugared, but we were a little more vanilla on some of those pre-snap looks. And these teams kind of knew what we were doing. So the interesting part about this defense to me this year is the fact that there's so much sugar incorporated that you really don't know. I mean, you might see X breathing down that line pre-snap thinking, oh boy, here we go, safety blitz. And then, nope, he's 30 yards downfield making a pick. So it's fun to watch. But great question, though, by Will in the Patreon for sure.
Absolutely. Patreon community is awesome, man. So for those of you listening on the pod, that's going to do it for hour one. We will see you on the other side for hour two. We appreciate y'all.